Hi, I'm Joyce Fishman, creator of Carousel. And today we have with us, we're very lucky to have with us Malcolm Moran. I'm sorry, I stumbled. Malcolm had a print exhibition in the Center for Contemporary Printmaking in Norwalk, Connecticut, that opened to critical acclaim. And the title of the show was The Beast and His Keeper. Where did you get that title?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. The title came from I've always painted several different types of animals as metaphors, not as because I'm particularly interested in horses or birds per se. I'm interested in the things that they can represent. And The Beast and His Keeper, the idea for the title, originated from one of the horse images, which had a rider and the horse not exactly working together. The horse appeared to be moving in one direction, and the rider appeared to be having something else on his mind. So unlike an equestrian horse and rider, these two beings were going in different directions. The image of that original image came from an experience I had when I was a child, when a horse ran away from me. And he ran away, and my family chased after me, but they did not keep up with the horse. The horse ran for what I guess was a mile. I was in the middle of the Sonoran Desert. And the horse scared me. I was petrified, hanging on for dear life, not sure if I was going to be able to hang on. He was jumping over gullies and whatever. And after a mile of me hanging on for dear life, he abruptly stopped. And he stopped because he wanted to eat a berry, a little red berry, off of the cactus of the Sonoran deserts. They're very tasty little berries. The Mexicans actually eat them, but the horses do too. And I guess they're like sort of like pomegranates, but they're hard to get to because the cactus has prickly things all over it. But for whatever reason, horses know exactly how to get to them. And he stopped to eat the pomegranate or the berry, and there I was, having survived what I thought was a near-death experience in the middle of the Sonoran Desert, eating berries off of cactuses with a horse. And I actually got so enamored, he looked like he was having such a good time eating the berries, I decided I really needed a berry too. So I started, I attempted to get to the berries. I never got to them, but in any case, I had an experience at that moment with me and that horse where we sort of were on the same page, so to speak. And it just left a very big impression on me. It wasn't just the fact that it was a near-death experience, it was also the after effect of the horse having a good time in the middle of the desert and sort of inviting me to do it with him. And it just was an image that stuck with me. And when I started painting these images of riders and horses, it just is something that stayed with me. And it's been a metaphor which is interesting for me because it sort of is it's a way to get at that urge that we all have to sort of want to be in control of everything, but never quite be able to have control of it. So it's the beast and his keeper. The beast is maybe sometimes the horse, sometimes it's the man, sometimes the horse is the keeper, sometimes the man is the keeper. We're not always in charge. And that image of not being in charge, but on the other hand, wanting to be in charge, is just something that was always something I had to express in my work, and I've tried to do that. And this was a very good vehicle for me to do that.
Mm. And what other experiences have you had with horses?
Well, again, the image is not always, it's not so much the experiences I've had with horses. I'm really not a horse person. I should probably not admit that, because I think I live in the middle of horse country, and people who might buy my horses might want to buy them because I have a knowledge of horses. I really don't have much of a knowledge of horses, but I have a feeling of affinity to horses. Mm. One of the things that when I was in art school at the Rhode Island School of Design, one of my professors made me, he saw that I was drawing horses even back then, and so I had to spend a whole semester studying George Stubbs' horses. George Stubbs is the English master of horse painting. Mm-hmm. Many of his paintings are at the Yale Museum in New Haven. So I had to study horse skeletons and horse muscle structures for the longest of times, and so I think they're embedded in my head. But they've just always been a very good metaphor for lots of different things. This most recent work at the Ridgefield Library includes some horses where they have a rider, but the rider and the horse are in unison and are going along together quite well, but they have a weightiness to them that other horses I've had don't. So these are very heavy horses. So the horse embodied the whole idea of gravity for me, of just being on this earth. We're here, I'm here, and horses are here. And the fact that, that's an idea that the physicality and there's something about gravity which defines physicality to me. Mm-hmm. We're not spirits flying around the sky. We're here on this earth, 2 feet on the ground, and if you're a horse, 4 feet on the ground. And I tried to get that in a picture. Mm-hmm. And so the horses that are in the Ridgefield show, actually, there's several of them that are doing that. I have other horses doing other things. Some of them get to the point where they don't look like horses very much at all. They look like abstractions of horses. And you can tell they're horses, but the image changes a good bit depending on what's going on in my mind at the time. But that's generally the horse image. It's a vehicle for me to express things that are important to me. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons they're so good is because they always involve. They don't always involve, but they can involve a rider, and the rider is that other person. So they're two. It's a play with two people in the play.
And they're equal.
And I'm equal to the horse sometimes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the horse gets the better of me. Sometimes I get the better of the horse. Mm-hmm. Usually the horse has an upper hand. Yeah. It's always been my experience with horses is they tend to do what they want when they do it, and you're along for the ride. Mm-hmm. And a lot of life is like that. And
it can be a pleasure.
Oh, I like pleasurable experiences too. Mm-hmm. I tend to remember the less than pleasurable experiences more, but I've been known to paint pleasurable experiences as well.
So you've had different horses, but what other animals have you?
Well, I have painted birds and goats, and the goat image has been an important image because I have an affinity to goats because they're so individualistic. Every goat has a different shape, size, face. Mm-hmm. You put 20 of them in a room and you could name them and you'd never forget their names. They're all individuals, and I'm big on individualism. Mm-hmm. I believe that among people it's a good thing, and I think among goats it's a good thing. So again, it's a vehicle for me to express an idea, mm-hmm. which is, for whatever reason, we were put on this earth as many different types and as individual beings. And every time I paint a goat or draw a goat, it's different. And I don't really even necessarily have to look at a goat to get the image of a goat that's different from the next goat. They also, because I spent a lot of time reading Greek mythology and the Torah, the Old Testament, and the New Testament, and as many sources for myth as I can, and I always was, as much as I'm attracted to goats, I've noticed that, for instance, in the Torah, they have a very low opinion of goats. You want to be a sheep, but not a goat, at least in the Old Testament or the Torah. Same as it follows in the New Testament. You do not want to be a goat. You don't want to be described as a goat. Goats aren't treated very well in Greek mythology or Roman mythology either. And this is always very curious to me. So I'm sort of sticking up for goats here.
Not everybody should be against them.
Not everybody can be against goats. I mean, come on.
And what about birds? Do you like birds?
Well, the bird image has been very strong. I mean, I had an experience with a crow once that was a very profound experience. I was going to see somebody who had passed away, who was sick and was not going to make it, and it was sort of my farewell visit. And on the way, I was traveling through the Ninth Ward in New Orleans, which was famous because it was blown away in Hurricane Katrina, and I saw this crow looking at its image in a puddle in the middle of the street. And the streets of New Orleans are not really streets. They're more like a series of potholes. And it just was it gave me a sense of, I had this sense of both a forlorn, but also of, there was something of life in that image that I couldn't explain, something of depth that I needed in going to say goodbye to somebody who was important to me, who was dying. That was the first time I started painting that image and drawing that image. But I continued doing it. I did actually a little, this had nothing to do with unconscious or subconscious or whatever, but just going on Google and looking up crows. But I started reading about crows, and they're fascinating because one of the things is they're the only animal, the only beast other than humans that take care of their elderly. And really? I thought that was very curious. I liked that. They also had this reputation in the art world of being images or foretelling, dying, which is not also which is a myth. So because apparently crows, they got this reputation because they always were showing up in cemeteries, and one of the reasons they apparently show up in cemeteries a lot is because nobody bothers them there, because there's nobody in a cemetery other than people who are laying to rest. So they tend to go there. They also don't ever leave where they were born. They stay where they were born, generation after generation after generation. And in my own life, I've spent time traveling around a lot, and I was attracted by the thought that there was actually a species of beings that stayed in one place and didn't have the urge to travel a lot.
And found a home.
They found a home, and that attracted me to birds. There's something about coming home to a crow that I appreciated. So I was drawn to draw them, and I've been drawing them ever since.
And what about houses? Do you ever draw houses?
Well, my house, the house image is another one of those recurring images, and I think you could talk to any artist anywhere, and they will always say that they have recurring images that they tend to be drawn to. Houses appeared in my work early on, and the houses also take many forms, but they always seem to show up in my landscapes. Clusters of houses always somehow represent clusters of people in the houses. I've gone through periods when the houses had no windows or doors. I'm not exactly sure what that's about, but they didn't. I've had houses where the houses were within a landscape and they were crumbling. I've had images of houses that you could see through. and they all tend to point to something beyond houses. I mean, these are all metaphors for something that's going on, you know, in my own mind or my own psyche. And art and painting and drawing for me are a way of expressing the things that are important to me. They're the things that are important to me out there, and they're the things that are important to me inside. And they help me process. So when I don't understand why something is happening, why I'm moving so much, or why I can't seem to settle in one place, I'll paint a crow or I'll paint a house. And it points to something else. It doesn't always give me an answer, but it satisfies me. So you know, my work is can be a little bit like a journal. I mean, it's like a visual journal. I work, and it serves a purpose in my life, and it lets me kind of know where I'm going. It's a compass, and I never thought of it as a career, which is probably not a good thing, but.
Well, it's satisfying. What you're thinking of is
well,
satisfying to you.
It satisfies me.
Important.
It
Yeah.
satisfies me greatly, and it gives me, you know, it gives me something that I couldn't get in any other form. It informs me of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And if I tried to write a book, all that would do would be to frustrate me. Wouldn't help at all. If I tried to, I actually, because I actually ran my family business for years, you know, making a lot of money and building a great big business really didn't do it for me either. It wasn't terrible, but it was it wasn't the thing that drove me. And so I've always had to do this, and you know, it's been something which has just been very important to me. And I'm very happy also to be able to pick it up again, because there was a big chunk in my life, big period in my life when I couldn't do it. Yeah.
Do you like fish?
Do I like fish? I would like fish if I could find something for them to represent, because I actually like the form of a fish. I do like boats. And I like boats because boats again have been an image. My boats have never taken a very, they've actually ended up on the abstract side of my work, because I'm not exactly sure why, but they tend to be more abstract. A lot of the work I have presently at the Ridgefield show are of boats, and it's from my boat series. But I'll think about fish.
Never know.
You may find a fish in my next show. Who knows?
Okay.
I don't. But boats certainly have been an important thing, and actually is an area that I'm involved with right now. So it is developing as we speak.
And what about people?
My portraits, you know, most of my portraiture, a lot of it has to deal with it has to do with me dealing with the world that I live in. I'm an introvert. I could sit in a studio alone all day and never get involved with people. When I do get involved with people, they're curious to me, because they're interesting, and they never give me what I think they're going to give me. And so when I'm with people, I have to process the people, and I do a lot of processing of people through portraiture. I never do portraits of people that I know. I never do portraits of. I never work from photographs. I work from my head, and that allows me to sort of infuse in the images some idea of a person that I have. And so all of my portraits, the portraiture, like the goats, and I don't mean to compare goats to people, but every one of them is a little bit different, and that's because they all encompass some different feeling that I'm trying to get into this image that I'm making. You know, I have pictures that are self-portraits. I have pictures of people that I grew up with who were important to me in my life. I've drawn pictures. I had a lot of a lot of African American people in my life who were very important to me. I mean, at a very close level, almost like parents or second parents. I don't want to insult my mother, who was dear to me, but they were like second parents to me. And yet, I will draw a portrait which people look at and they say, "Well, she's not This is not an African American. Why do you call this after the name of the person who was an African?" And it's because I don't. That's not how I see that person. I see that person as meaning and being something else, and so they can be anything. They could. I could draw a woman who's a man who's a good guy, a guy who's a bad guy, and then the idea would be bad guy. I have a picture called The Glutton. The Glutton is just a guy who looked like he was getting more than he needed. I have another one entitled The Gentleman. He looks like a gentleman on the surface, but there was something lurking below the surface, and I think I got that in the picture. And you know, this is sort of how they go. This is my portraits. They're all different, and they allow me to express something that otherwise I couldn't express. And there are actually in the Ridgefield show, there are several. That show will be up until the end of January, and so I hope people can get over there and see them. But there are several portraits in there. Most of them are earlier, and I probably shouldn't say that because the title of the show is Recent Works. I had to throw a few older works in there to get context for the newer work. So I had to curate the show, and I threw in a few older works, but that's generally why I paint people.
Do you like dogs?
I actually do like dogs. They always end up looking like goats, though, at the end of the day. I have a whole series of dogs. I owned a Scottie. And the Scotties, you know, Scotties, I don't want to insult Scotties. I don't know if there are any looking, but they kind of look like goats. So all of my dog photos always captured my Scotties when they were in different temperaments. They could be ornery, they could be curious, they could be mad, and that's what I would try to capture. But they always seem to look like something other than a Scottie. I'm glad they didn't know what they were doing or be able to critique my work, because they probably wouldn't be happy with what I was painting. But again, they always point to something else, because I'm always interested in the something else, not so much the image as much as what it might lead to. And you know, so that's sort of it. I mean, most of my work has some story related to it. I draw very heavily on stories, particularly my landscapes. One of the goat pictures that is not in the Ridgefield show is a picture of a goat walking down a highway, and that came from a biblical story of the scapegoat, of the escaping goat. The story there is that goats, that the Hebrews the different tribes every year, I don't exactly know the specifics, but they'd have a ceremony where every year they would allow one goat to get off the hook, essentially, to get away with being guilty without being guilty, and so they would let him off into the wilderness untethered, and he would be able to wander off. So I did a well, I won't call it a series, but several paintings entitled The Scapegoat, it was The Escaping Goat, which is where the word scapegoat came from. So there's always a story behind it. I have a series of landscapes that I did. One of the landscapes involved a town of houses. The houses were all close. There was another house that was, you know, some distance away, and there was a road going between the two houses. And in between the road, on the road, was a man, you couldn't see the whole man, running down the road away from the clump of houses. I don't know what that was about, but you know, I'll speak to somebody else, and I actually sold that painting. So if that person looks at it long enough, maybe they can tell me what it's about. That's one of the things I enjoyed. I enjoy talking about my work with other people because I often get things that I don't even see in my work, and
Many interpretations.
many interpretations, and sometimes other people can see things better than I can see them myself. And so that's it. The show that's in Ridgefield is up through the end of the month. A lot of these works are there, and the show that you referenced earlier, at the Center for Contemporary Printmaking, The Bewildered Beast, is down now. But some of the works from that show are at the Ridgefield show right now. So
Good.
yeah.
And we're almost finished. And so if you have anything else to say, this is the time.
Well, I don't. I appreciated your having me. I enjoyed this, and I hope that some of this has made sense to some people. This sort of getting into the mind of an artist.
And that is, I'm most impressed by that, because it's not, artists don't always talk. They may paint or whatever, but they aren't as verbal as you.
Well, maybe it's my training from my other lives that I had to be verbal, but you know, and it's important because I think some people, what artists do sometimes is very mysterious to people, and it really shouldn't be. I mean, visual thinking is a form of thinking. All of us are visual thinkers. We don't always want to admit it. And a lot of people don't understand how visual they are. You go to sleep at night and you dream in pictures. People who aren't artists dream in pictures. People who are artists dream in pictures. So.
Well, I think we'll end with that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me.
So I thank you very much for coming.
Appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure. Thank you.